Author, Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Cardin, Ranking Member Rich. Thank you for this hearing. And thank you, Mr. Nathan. Thank you, Scott, for your leadership at the DFC. It has been a long and strange road to the moment we're at right now. The transition from OPIC and its scope and authorities and risk tolerance and mission and where the DFC is today. I respect the questions and the framing and also share some concerns about making sure that the restructuring and the transition is oriented towards making the DFC agile, responsive, and engaged in the moment. But I want to focus my engagement with you this morning on equity scoring. One of two things that we did not do, I think, right up front, we instead gave a couple of years. The total lending cap at $60 billion as opposed to 100, and the way that your equity authority is treated is scored. Along with Senator Cornyn, earlier this year, I introduced the Enhancing American Competitiveness Act, and this is to address how your equity is scored. That bill doesn't amend the Fair Credit Reporting Act, to be clear, to those who are concerned about it. It would create a scoring mechanism to assess the fair value of equity investments, similar to how a loan is scored. And it would allow the DFC, with smaller amounts invested, to leverage much larger amounts of private capital. At least that's my understanding. I'd be very interested in hearing from you. To what extent has the current scoring of equity served as a constraint on what the DFC is able to do? Are there specific projects you could cite that you've had to forego because of the current scoring, and how would that do in terms of competing with the PRC and the development impact, which I think needs to be at the focus of everything? And if we have another few minutes after that, what other key priorities do you have before we get to reauthorization that we have to address in the near term?
Thanks very much for the question, and of course for all of your support over the years. To make the equity problem simple, we get a program budget, an appropriation for program funds that can be used for equity, that can be used for what's called positive subsidy for debt transactions that require it. That's often in countries that are in particular difficulty at the moment, Ukraine being an example of that. We also use that subsidy for technical assistance. Technical assistance grants is a tool given to us by the BUILD Act that we didn't previously have. All of these different tools compete for that pot of subsidy. Equity, at the moment, for every dollar that we invest in equity, is using $1 of that appropriation as if it's a grant, as if there's no offsetting asset by virtue of making the equity investment. It assumes that every equity investment we make will lose 100%. And while I don't believe DFC is likely to have the highest record in equity investing, it would be extraordinary to lose 100% in every single investment we make. The Cambridge Associates data on emerging market equity, private equity investments, shows on average high single-digit returns over almost any time period you look at, and I don't think we're going to be any different than that. This is a real constraint. It means we're constrained by the appropriation. We don't get the kind of leverage that we do in our lending activity. Last year, of the $7.4 billion of transactions we did, roughly $500 million of that was equity. The rest was debt and political risk insurance on a tiny bit of capital.
In the minute or two we have left, what difference would it make if we fixed your equity scoring challenge?
It would enable us to be earlier in investments, to be more influential and have a seat at the table, to provide more risk-oriented capital to developers. An example of the kind of thing that I would like to do if we had more is our investment in TechMet, which is a critical mineral investment platform with a strong pro-US bent to it. I would love to find other platforms that provide deals in the energy sector, in the infrastructure sector, in the health and agriculture sector. By backing developers earlier, we can influence their choice of vendors, their choice of other investors or co-financers. We can influence the direction and also produce potential deal flow for our lending activity. We're currently too constrained to do that. It's hard to build a team also without certainty around how much capital we have to invest. So this is really my highest priority, to fix this issue, and I appreciate your attention to it.
Well, I'll just conclude if I could. If I hear you right, one of the core goals of the BUILD Act was to strengthen our ability in development finance to partner and syndicate.
Yeah.
Some of our key partners, South Korea, Japan, the Nordics, UK, have development finance institutions. When we only have debt, we are at the end of the process. When we have equity, we are early in the process. We can syndicate better, we can shape deals better, we can get better leverage from our very deep private sector. Frankly, we're blessed to have two colleagues here today who know a lot more about this field than I ever will. I think we need to fix this and not wait another year or two or three. And the funds that we are appropriating, and you got your full request in the Senate version SFOPs, those dollars will go much farther, and you are a critical resource in our global competition for more transparent, more sustainable development finance. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Ricketts.